On tonight's summary of the Israel-Hamas War, Day 191. More information has been published about Iran's attack on Israel yesterday. Over 350 drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles were fired at the country. Amidst the pressure from Israel's hawkish elements in government to retaliate, U.S. President Biden tells Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to take the win of last night's interceptions and not escalate further. After rejecting the latest hostage proposal, Hamas has reportedly put forth its own proposal to negotiators involving IDF withdrawal and a hostage exchange after a 6-week truce. Riots in the West Bank. Israeli settlers carry out raids against Palestinian villages after the killing of a 14-year-old Israeli settler near Ramallah. The IDF is calling up 2 divisions of soldiers for reserve duty to begin 2-week training before being deployed for future operations in the Gaza Strip. Hello everyone, I'm Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine. Here I bring you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas War. It's currently the evening of April 14th, 2024 in the United States, the morning of April 15th, 2024 in the Middle East. Starting with more information about Iran's attack that was carried out yesterday against Israel. According to reports today, the IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari published a map illustrating the trajectory of Iran's attack both from Iran and from Yemen, stating that in total Iran had fired over 350 drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles against Israel, culminating in over 60 tons of explosives that were launched towards the country. He added that 99% of all drones and missiles had been intercepted by Israel alongside its regional allies, stating that the main target of the different projectiles that were fired were to destroy strategic and sensitive assets within Israel, including the IDF's Nabatim Air Force Base, which houses the IDF's F-35 regiments. The IDF published photos of some of the strikes near Nabatim, seen here, and it was reported that had the Iranian attack been able to succeed, it would have destroyed at least 2 major IDF bases. According to some reports in Iran, the attack did manage to destroy the base in Nabatim. The IDF also published video footage showing different F-35s landing in the region to discredit these publications in Iran. In addition to this, regarding the role of other actors in the interceptions from last night, U.S. Central Command reported that the United States had intercepted over 80 drones and 6 ballistic missiles that were fired towards Israel, adding that 1 of these missiles and 7 of these drones were launched from Yemen. Jordan also participated heavily in the interceptions, targeting any aerial target that violated Jordanian airspace. It was also reported today that Egypt refused the U.S. request to take part in the preparations of the interceptions and in the actual interceptions during the attack, stating that it intends to remain neutral in the confrontation between Israel and Iran. Regarding the actual attack and its launching from Iran, New York Times reported today that Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khaminai had personally ordered the attack as a signaling of a shifting strategy of the Islamic Republic vis-a-vis Israel. Khamenei also put out a tweet today showing the intercepted missiles above the al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, writing in the tweet in Hebrew, stating that Jerusalem will be in the hands of Muslims and the Islamic world will celebrate the liberation of Palestine. In addition, the commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, Hossein Salami, stated today that Iran limited its attack to targeting facilities that were used in the attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus on April 1st, adding that the attack could have been far wider. So this somewhat matches what the IDF spokesperson stated, that the attack was aiming at primarily IDF targets, as well as different strategic facets of Israel, rather than just generally towards different targets throughout the country. In the aftermath of the attack in the last 24 hours in Israel, the country has reopened its airspace and announced that citizens no longer have to stay near bomb shelters. Initially, the educational system of the country was also due to shut down for 2 days, including Monday. However, today the IDF announced that educational establishments are going to resume as of tomorrow, i.e. Monday. This all implies that Israel does not expect the Iranian attack to continue, that this current wave is over. Lufthansa, Swiss Air, and Austrian Air have all cancelled their flights to Israel, Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon until tomorrow. The flights to Iran are cancelled until April 18th, and Iran itself has ordered the closure of its airspace around Tehran for another day. In addition, estimates were published today regarding the costs of the defensive activities that Israel carried out in the last 24 hours, estimating that intercepting all of the fire from Iran is going to end up costing, in the last 24 hours, roughly 4 to 5 billion new Israeli shekels, that is between 1 to 1.3 billion US dollars. Regarding Israel's expected response and retaliation to Iran's attack, the Israeli War Cabinet met today for over 3 hours to discuss Israel's response. Different statements were made throughout the day. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant stated that there is a rare opportunity at this moment to create a regional alliance against Iran, stating that Iran would have been capable of fitting nuclear warheads on missiles like the ones it fired yesterday, targeting anyone in the Middle East. Yoav Gallant is calling on the creation of a regional alliance to combat Iran with the different quote-unquote moderate Middle Eastern countries. In addition to this, Israel's Foreign Office stated today, among others, that the price that Iran must pay for the attack should include the world declaring the Iranian Revolutionary Guard a terrorist organization, heavy sanctions that will be imposed on Iran, and that Israel will claim its price in self-defense when it sees fit. In turn, the different hawkish elements within Israel's government, specifically Ministers Ben Gvir, Smotrich, and Strzok, all called upon Israel to launch a massive retaliation immediately against Iran. Itamar Ben Gvir, the Minister of National Security, stated that it's time to go nuts in the retaliation to Iran, and Finance Minister Smotrich stated that if Israel does not retaliate harshly, it will be placing itself in existential threat. Regarding some of the political responses from the world regarding last night's attack, the UN Security Council is currently holding a special session to debate the attack. Within it, Israel's ambassador to the UN has stated that the Iranian regime is no different than the Nazi regime, and Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei is no different than Adolf Hitler. In addition to this, some other political responses, the senior U.S. official stated today that the coordination between the United States and Israel, as well as between the United States and Jordan and other regional allies, proved itself last night. The sources added that the United States has demonstrated its unequivocal commitment to Israel's defense and shown that it will stand by Israel. However, the sources also reconfirmed the rumors that had surfaced yesterday, stating that U.S. President Biden informed Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu on the phone that the United States is not going to take part in Israel's retaliation against Iran. NBC reported that Biden told Netanyahu specifically that he had achieved a great victory in foiling Iran's attack, and that Netanyahu should, quote, take that win and not escalate the situation further. In addition, it was reported today that foreign ministers of France and the United Kingdom held emergency conversations with Israel's Foreign Minister Israel Katz immediately after the Iranian attack began, with the two applying monumental pressure on Israel to not retaliate immediately and instead to calculate its moves. Similarly, the G7 leaders held a meeting today, issuing strict condemnations of Iran's attack. They all agreed that they will apply pressure and work in different channels to ensure that Israel does not carry out a retaliation that will escalate the region further, and agreed to work towards a ceasefire in Gaza that will help spiral the situation down. Related to this, Jordan's King Abdullah II also stated in a conversation with President Biden today that an Israeli retaliation is going to widen the conflict circles in the Middle East, and stated that the way to spiral the situation down is to reach a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. In turn, the spokesperson for Russia's Foreign Office, Maria Zakharova, refused to condemn Iran's attack today, rhetorically asking Israel's ambassador to Russia, and I quote, Simona, remind me, when did Israel condemn even one attack that was carried out by the Ukrainian regime against Russia? She cited the fact that Israel has supported Ukraine in the Russia-Ukraine war, and similar to this, in the UN Security Council, Russia stated that Iran operated based on the international legal framework of self-defense, and that the guilty party in this escalation is Israel for carrying out its attack on April 1st against Iran's consulate in Damascus. So just to summarize where things lie right now, everyone is awaiting to see what is going to be Israel's retaliation. Is it going to be, first of all, a public retaliation in the form of military response, or a clandestine retaliation in the form of explosions or assassinations that all of a sudden occur within Iran? What is going to be the scale of that retaliation, and is it going to be something that spirals the situation further? The United States reportedly is applying open pressure on Israel to say, take the win and do not actually carry out this retaliation. However, a lot depends on the configuration and balance of power within Israel's government. We will learn more about this, obviously, in the coming days. Some of the other highlights from the war in the last 24 hours, starting with the hostage situation. Yesterday I reported that Hamas has officially rejected the latest hostage deal proposal. Today it was reported that, in addition to this rejection, Hamas did give a counter-offer to the negotiators. According to what was reported, which is a bit fragmented, Hamas's proposal includes a three-phase deal. In Phase 1, a 6-week truce and an IDF redeployment in the Gaza Strip, during which time Hamas will round up all hostages. In Phase 2, an IDF withdrawal to Israel, and only then, 6 weeks after the truce begins, beginning the hostage exchange with the hostages that were supposed to be part of the initial stage of the deal, on the formula of 30 Palestinian prisoners per each Israeli hostage, and for each female IDF soldier that is held, 50 Palestinian prisoners, of whom 30 are quote-unquote heavy prisoners. Hamas also demands canceling the more severe conditions that have been imposed on Palestinian prisoners since October 7th during this second phase of the deal. In the final stage of the deal, the remaining hostages will be released, and the siege on Gaza will be removed, and rebuilding of the Strip will begin. It was not reported how many Palestinian prisoners Hamas would be demanding in this third phase. I will also say that these demands are something that Israel has openly rejected in the past, so the fact that Hamas has put this forth is going to be something that possibly the negotiators come back to Israel with and say, okay, let's negotiate from this position. Israel, however, in the past has said there's no point in negotiating if the initial conditions are that the IDF has to completely withdraw from the Gaza Strip and come to an ultimate ceasefire. So it remains to be seen right now, once the situation with Iran spirals down, whether the negotiations even continue at this phase or if they are going to completely collapse. There was major U.S. criticism that was leveled at Hamas's refusal to the hostage deal today. While this has been somewhat overshadowed by Iran's attack, the U.S. is likely to also employ a lot of pressure on Egypt and primarily on Qatar to take action against the Hamas leadership as a result of this refusal. According to different reports, the United States has been demanding that Qatar both evict the Hamas leadership from the country as well as freeze its assets. The Hamas leadership has a lot of assets in millions of dollars in Qatar. Remains to be seen if this pressure is resumed and if Qatar does adhere. Moving on to the Gaza Strip, there were no rockets or mortars that were fired from the Gaza Strip towards Israel in the last 24 hours. Regarding the situation in the Gaza Strip, the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, there were rumors that had spread throughout the Gaza Strip and the southern parts of the Strip in the last 24 hours, stating that the IDF has permitted the return of women and children to the northern parts of the Strip. This led to large amounts of such civilians to begin traveling north, while the IDF was putting out messages saying that these rumors are not true. The IDF reportedly, in addition to these messages, started using all kinds of warning shots towards the approaching civilians, including in some cases smoke bombs and live fire that was fired into the air, according to the IDF, in an attempt to disperse the population. Later in the day, however, medical sources in the Gaza Strip stated that an IDF helicopter had opened fire on some of the people as they tried to push further north. 5 Palestinians were reportedly killed, according to medical sources in the Gaza Strip. Again, the IDF did not report about this. It simply stated that the forces fired smoke bombs and fired into the air, while they were repeatedly being warned not to approach the IDF soldiers. In the central parts of the Gaza Strip, that's where the bulk of the fighting is currently going on. The IDF operation is continuing in the outskirts of the central camps, specifically al-Nusayrat refugee camp. According to reports, the IDF has uncovered launching sites and has engaged in substantial gun battles in the last 24 hours. The IDF reported that as part of the operation, different engineering units also constructed makeshift bridges above the Wadi Azza River that divides the Gaza Strip from north to south in order to bring more troops into the region. Palestinian sources on the ground also reported that IDF drones were carrying out attacks in the northern parts of al-Nusayrat refugee camp, and that several people were killed and injured in these different attacks. In the southern parts of the Gaza Strip, in Khan Yunis, there was an airstrike that was reported in the vicinity of the European hospital in the heart of the city. 5 Palestinians are reported to have been killed in this airstrike. The IDF did not report about this airstrike or what specifically the target was. Other news related to the Gaza Strip. After the IDF had pulled almost all of its forces out of the Gaza Strip and also released a lot of their different reserve units that have been fighting in Gaza, there was an announcement today made by the IDF that the military is drafting 2 reserve divisions for future operations in the Gaza Strip. The 2 divisions are going to begin with a 2-week training period, and based upon what the IDF is tasked with after that, they will enter the Gaza Strip for these operations. The timing of this is quite important, since it was reported in the last several weeks that Israel had signaled to the United States the month of May, which is due to begin in 2 weeks after this training of the divisions is over, as a possible time for the invasion of Rafah to commence. At the same time, it is also important to note that before the invasion of Rafah, the IDF has said it's going to carry out a mass evacuation of civilians from Rafah. That into itself is supposed to take several weeks, so it remains to be seen if this is also part of a signaling game that the IDF is saying it's preparing for the Rafah invasion or not. Obviously, we'll learn more about that in the weeks to come. Regarding casualties, no IDF soldiers reported killed in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours. This leaves the total number of IDF soldiers killed in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began on 260. 4 IDF soldiers reported injured in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of IDF soldiers injured in the Gaza Strip since the invasion began to 1,565. The Palestinian Health Ministry is reporting that 43 Palestinians were killed in the Gaza Strip in the last 24 hours, bringing the total number of Palestinians killed in the Gaza Strip since the war began to 33,729. 76,371 Palestinians are reported injured in the Gaza Strip since the war began. Moving on to the West Bank, there was continued settler attacks that were carried out in different Palestinian villages in the last 24 hours, following the murder of 14-year-old Binyamin Khaminai from the unauthorized settlement Malachei Shalom that occurred over the weekend. Reports include dozens of Palestinian homes and cars that have been torched in the nearby Palestinian villages to this unauthorized outpost, as well as herds of sheep of Palestinians that have been stolen and slaughtered. The deputy mayor of the El Muer village stated that over 60 Palestinian vehicles were torched, as well as 16 Palestinian homes, 10 of which were entirely destroyed. The IDF reportedly declared a siege of the village on Sunday morning. Reportedly, this was also to stop settlers from raiding the village, but it also is to stop anyone from leaving the village, as the IDF is searching for the attackers who carried out that murder of Binyamin Khaminai. In some of the pictures that were disseminated from the attacks, and I'm showing some of them here, settlers were seen torching Palestinian cars while IDF soldiers were on patrol in protection around them. The pictures were taken from security cameras in the Deir Dabwan area of the West Bank. The IDF did not give any commentary to these pictures. In addition, there was substantial IDF activity that was reported in several places around Ramallah throughout the last 24 hours. Confrontations reportedly erupted in several incidents, and Palestinian sources reported that 7 people were injured in Gilazon refugee camp and in the Mazara Asharkiya camp. 4 of those who were injured are reportedly either badly injured or in critical condition. There were no reports that were made regarding how many Palestinians were arrested in the West Bank in the last 24 hours. Moving on to the northern parts of Israel, southern parts of Lebanon. As part of Iran's attack last night, Hezbollah also launched over 100 rockets in several different barrages, targeting both the Upper Galilee and the Western Galilee. In addition, throughout the day, there were other rocket barrages that targeted the areas of Margliot and Menorah. There were also several Hezbollah drones that were fired that were intercepted in the area. Regarding IDF activity, responding to the barrages, the IDF reported carrying out a more unusual attack deep in the heart of Lebanon. According to the IDF, this attack targeted a weapons manufacturing area in the Nabi Shith region of Baalbek. This is some 100 kilometers north of the Israeli border. It was not reported how many airstrikes were carried out in the region, or if people were injured or killed in this attack. In addition to this, IDF warplanes reportedly targeted Hezbollah infrastructure and military structures in the areas in southern Lebanon, specifically the villages of Kila, Marhaba, and Marun Aras. Lookout posts were also bombed in the areas of Al-Matmora. Artillery fire was also reported in the areas of Ita Sha'ab and Asavana. Throughout the day, Hezbollah announced the death of another one of its operatives, bringing the total number of operatives that Hezbollah states have been killed since the war began to 275. And finally, one report relating to the future of the Gaza Strip. Al-Arabi al-Jadid published a report today quoting Egyptian sources stating that they are in ongoing negotiations with Israel in regards to the security arrangements in Rafah in preparation for Israel's invasion. The report also added that Egypt has rejected an Israeli proposal to take over managing the Gaza Strip if and when the IDF does withdraw from the Strip, as well as a revised proposal to jointly manage the Gaza Strip with Israel. The source is quoted as stating that as long as the Gaza Strip is under Israeli occupation, i.e. as long as Israel is the one that has authority in the Strip and control over what is allowed in the Strip and who is allowed to leave, and essentially overarching security and governing powers, Egypt will not take part in the Strip. While this report is stating that this has been rejected by Egypt several times since the war began, I bring it since it means that there are still ongoing negotiations that Israel is trying to negotiate with Egypt regarding what is going to be the future of the Gaza Strip, and possibly come up to some sort of resolution if and when the IDF does withdraw from the Gaza Strip, how the governing system there is going to look. If you find these reports informative, please do remember to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications if you want to know when reports come out. If you have questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.